Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to start in 1 second here. I want to make sure you can all see my screen. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's Connecticut Green Bank Summer Update webinar. Thank you all for taking the time on this Wednesday to hear about what's been happening with us over the past few months. My name is Rudy Sturck. I'm the Associate Director of Marketing, and I'll be your MC today as we share this presentation. A number of my colleagues are joining me, and we'll give you a brief introduction as we go through, as we talk about many exciting programs that are underway at the Connecticut Green Bank. So today's agenda, we're going to have an introduction from our President and CEO, Brian Garcia. We're going to talk about our home solutions, which include energy storage solutions and the Smarty Loan. We're going to talk about our building solutions and touch upon CPACE for new construction, as well as some of our solar options, including the new roof lease option. We're going to talk about investment solutions, including our Green Liberty notes. We'll then go back to Brian for some closing thoughts, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A. So throughout today's presentation, if you have questions, please type them in, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the session. So without any further delay, I'm going to turn this over to Green Bank President and CEO, Brian Garcia.
All right, Rudy, thank you. Thank you for getting us launched there. I wanted to welcome you all. Actually, I am online from our new headquarters here in downtown Hartford at the Connecticut Nonprofit Center. So excited to be with you all online here in the capital of Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. Just a quick overview of the Connecticut Green Bank. It's been a while since we've had conversations. We are the nation's first green bank. We were founded by the passage of Public Act 1180, nearly a unanimous bipartisan act, had 138 sections. Section 99 was the creation of the nation's first green bank. We essentially use limited public dollars to mobilize multiples of private investment in Connecticut's green economy. As you'll hear today from our team members, you'll see how we do that through a variety of different financing programs, incentive programs. Our mission is to confront climate change, and we do that by increasing and accelerating investment into Connecticut's green economy. Again, we want to use limited public resources and mobilize multiples of private. So we want to increase it and accelerate that investment. And as we do that, we create more resilient, healthier, and equitable communities. Guiding our mission is a planet protected by the love of humanity. Many of us have at the forefront the mission to confront climate change, but I would argue that if we aren't respecting each other, loving each other, then we're not going to get to confronting climate change the way we need to. Let's go to the next slide there, Rudy. So just further delving in to the Connecticut Green Bank. So we're a quasi-public organization. So we're created by the legislature. And the way I describe what we do is we use private sector disciplines to achieve public sector goals. So we have a board of directors who reviews and approves our annual budget and targets, and we meet with on a regular basis to achieve a number of targets that you're going to hear about over the course of today. We are also like an intermediary between the public policy objectives of the state and the markets. For those of you who are here in Connecticut, you all know that we have very ambitious climate change, renewable energy targets, energy efficiency targets. So whether that is reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 45% from 2001 levels by 2030. We've also got 2040 goals, a zero electric sector by 2040 and a 80% reduction target by 2050, or our ambitious renewable portfolio standard, 40% class 1 by 2030, or efficiency targets like an 80% weatherization goal by 2030. Our legislators and executive branch, our governors, have been passing very ambitious policies. So our goal is to translate those public policies into investment from the private sector to support families and businesses so that we can deploy clean energy to achieve those public policy objectives. So we're often an intermediary between the public policy and the markets. We focus on financing clean energy. Folks on the call, I'm sure, are all very familiar with that. Renewable energy, energy efficiency, alternative fuel vehicles, and associated infrastructure are a part of our definition. And then last year, as a result of a recommendation from the Governor's Council on Climate Change in January, in the leadership of Governor Lamont, we received bipartisan support in June to extend our scope beyond clean energy to include environmental infrastructure, which includes land conservation, parks and recreation, carbon offsets, a number of things, agriculture, water, waste and recycling. There's a lot of things that we've got on our agenda now. And again, we want to bring the Green Bank tool to addressing more investment. So we want to take a little bit of public to attract multiples of private to support our green economy in Connecticut. We're supported by a variety of public sources. Specifically in the state of Connecticut, we receive a clean energy fund, which is a 1 mil, a tenth of a penny per kilowatt hour surcharge on electric ratepayer bills, which comes to about $7 to $10 per household per year. That aggregates to $25 million per year. That number has come down from $27, $28 million over the last decade, which means that we are doing our job with the EDCs to reduce electric consumption from our families and businesses. And we also receive 23% of the RGGI allowance proceeds. That is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative allowance proceeds, which is about $5 million per year. So we receive about $30 million per year, and the focus is to turn that $30 million into 5-10 times more private investment in our state economy. And rather than give that $30 million away, we actually loan it out. So we get that money back over time. That's the difference. That's the Green Bank model. Federal support, we definitely compete for federal solicitations. Back in the day, that was the sunshot. There's a lot of competitive solicitations coming out as a result of the bipartisan infrastructure law. We will be competing for those. And in some cases, there's non-competitive resources that come back to the state. We received actually it was $20 million at the time back in 2009 when the Green Bank was formed. We repurposed that outstanding amount, $8 million. We put those into our financing programs, and over the last decade have enabled about $175 million on top of that of private investment into clean energy in our state. So we like to turn all public dollars into multiples of private. And as you're going to hear, we've been delving into the kind of fixed income or the green bond area. Many of you might recall our Green Liberty bonds. You're going to hear from David talk about our Green Liberty notes. So we're getting individuals and institutional investors to invest in the Green Bank to support us providing capital to families and businesses to finance clean energy. Let's go to the next slide. So you're going to hear today several of our team members work through the different solutions that we have for our programs. Today, you're going to hear Ed talk about our energy storage solutions program, part of our home solutions suite of programs and products. You're going to hear Elise and Catherine talk about our building solutions programs and products, from CPACE to our Green Bank Solar PPA. And then you'll hear David talk about our investment solutions with Green Liberty notes. So we've got a number of different solutions, but our goal, as I've been saying, is to take a limited amount of public and scale up multiples of private. Over the last decade, we've taken $290 million of public revenues that have attracted $1.8 billion of private investment on top of that, for $2.1 billion of investment in Connecticut's green economy. So we want to do more of that. And as that investment comes in, we strengthen Connecticut's communities, especially vulnerable communities. Happy to dive into that definition if folks are interested, by making the benefits of the green economy inclusive and accessible to all individuals, families, and businesses. So as we see more investment coming into our green economy, deploying more clean energy, we get jobs in our communities, we get emissions reductions happening, we get public health improvement happening. So investment deployment leads to all those social and environmental goals that we're after. And then we pursue investment strategies that advance market transformation and green investing. David's going to talk about that specifically with us here today. And by investing ratepayer resources as loans instead of grants, we're able to support the organization's financial sustainability. I've got one more slide, and then I'm going to transition it back to you, Rudy. So a week ago, last Friday, our board of directors approved of our comprehensive plan. We call it Green Bonds Us. Green, the environment, bonds us, unites us, the environment unites us. It is tied to our vision statement of a planet protected by the love of humanity, but it also ties to our view that we can issue green bonds to raise capital from citizens across the country to invest in Connecticut. So we call our comprehensive plan Green Bonds Us. It's available on our website, so totally check it out. It's the first time you'll see a further elaboration of what we anticipate doing in our environmental new scope, environmental infrastructure. So take a look. We're chipping away at it and looking forward to enable more investment beyond clean energy and into environmental infrastructure in FY23. With that, let me turn it back to you, Rudy.
Thank you, Brian, for that introduction. Definitely sets the path for what we're going to talk about over the next 40 minutes or so. So I'm going to go to the home solutions area now, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ed Kranich, who's going to talk to us about energy storage solutions. You ready, Ed?
Yep. Thanks, Rudy. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So my name is Ed Kranich. I'm a Senior Manager of Incentive Programs with the Green Bank, formerly in the solar, residential solar program, and now moving on to energy storage solutions. So before we get into how energy storage solutions works and kind of what it is, let's first just talk about why it was created. So in the last couple of weeks, we've had a number of heat waves going on across the country, and certainly in Connecticut, and I think we're about to start another one right now. So when this happens, especially in the summertime, this extreme heat and this extreme load on things like cooling and people staying indoors can put a tremendous strain on the grid during certain times of the day, especially the hottest parts of the day when everyone's inside, everyone has the AC going, hottest time. That can make energy extremely expensive because that's the time of day, and at those peak hours is when the most expensive and often the most polluting forms of energy generation will go online. So next slide here. So just to kind of put a chart to what I was saying earlier. So at the bottom here, at the blue part of this chart here, this chart shows what electricity demand looks like during the day. That solid blue line that kind of goes up in a peak and then comes back down. So during the lowest demand times of the day, we're using base load, which in Connecticut is a lot of nuclear. And then as that starts to ramp up during the day, as people get their day started, get the lights on, get the AC started, intermediate, again, a lot of natural gas in Connecticut, which is a little bit more expensive than that cheaper baseload power. And then on those really hot days in the red at the very top, it doesn't always look like this every day. And probably on a day like today, it'll be even steeper. You'll see those fast peaking power plants get started, which can be very expensive. They can drive up the cost of energy, even if they only run for a few hours. They can drive up the energy costs, and they drive up emissions quite a bit because oftentimes those can be things like diesel or oil-powered plants that only run for a short amount of time. So very expensive, very polluting. So what the state wanted to do to alleviate some of this is to smooth out this blue line here. And you can do that by implementing batteries all across the state behind the meter in residences, in businesses. And you can do that by charging those batteries on the cheaper power, whether that's renewables in a lot of cases, or if they're not connected to renewables, they can charge during the cheaper times of the day which would be baseload or intermediate. And then you can discharge those batteries instead of going into that fast peaking, that red zone at the very top. So you can discharge those batteries that are full of energy that was generated by either a cleaner or cheaper source, especially renewables, and you can use that energy to avoid purchasing that very expensive, very dirty energy during those peak times of the summer. Next slide, please. So what are we talking about with energy storage? Well, in this case, for the small commercial and residential size, you have some names that you might know, like Generac, SunPower, Enphase, Tesla, which is TBD. They're in the process of applying, or we're awaiting their application to the program right now. But so some of these smaller batteries that people will keep in their house, often they'll pair it with solar. We've actually seen 100% of the projects that have come through the program so far for residential customers are paired with solar, because it goes great together. If you're using solar PV, you can use that to charge your battery, and then in the event of an outage, you can use that power, and then you can recharge it during the day with solar. In a large commercial setting, we're seeing a mix of businesses that are either pairing it with solar or just using it standalone. And the reason for that is because large commercial and industrial customers have very high demand profiles sometimes, and that demand can be very expensive. So if you want to charge those batteries at times when power is cheaper for you, you can use that power that was charged at a cheaper time to offset your demand when electricity is more expensive. And in both cases, both residential and commercial, this works for backup power as well. So, so aside from having the ability to avoid emissions, avoid peaks in the grid, you can use that power for backup when you need it. So getting into the next slide, we'll explain kind of some of the benefits, I believe, of energy storage here. So just for some info here on kind of what energy storage can support, this chart obviously is really geared more towards residential because these are all residential appliances. But just to give you an idea of what energy storage can do, we're talking about, in this case, like a 15 to 30 kilowatt hour size battery, which is about average for the average home that we've seen so far. So, for the low demand, the essentials easily can support things like refrigerators, appliances, small appliances, electronics, fans, lighting. But getting up towards the higher demand items like an electric water heater, electric baseboard heat, a dryer, air conditioning, central air conditioning, that's when you need to really kind of map out what your needs are versus your wants. And you and your contractor can design a system that works for you. So whether you absolutely need air conditioning, you absolutely need heat and things like that, of course, electric heat pumps, you can map out really how many batteries you need for your application, because really there's no limit to really what batteries can do. It's just really going to be constrained by either your budget or the amount of space you have. Next slide. So energy storage solutions. So what is it, and what's the incentive like? What's it kind of built around? So in the program for residential, we have customer classes that are divided: standard, underserved, and low income households. So standard, those are just market rate customers. Underserved customers are those who live in a DECD distressed municipality. I believe there's about 27 towns in Connecticut that qualify. Those customers would receive an elevated incentive, 50% higher than standard. And then low income households are those who households at 60% or below state median income. And that's an extra 100% adder on the incentive. In commercial and industrial customer classes, there's small, medium, and large, which is just based on the peak demand for the customer, for the commercial and industrial customer. So systems that that qualify and participate in energy storage solutions can receive two incentives. The first one is an upfront incentive, so that's just cash off the total cost of your system, and that's based on what we call passive dispatch. So passive dispatch is during June, July, and August, your battery will be pre-programmed to discharge most of its capacity, up to 80% of its capacity, over a period of 5 hours equally in the afternoons from 3 to 8 p.m. during all non-holiday weekdays. So most of the time, today, for instance, non-holiday weekday in August, the battery would be pre-programmed to meet your on-site demand. So it would charge either from your solar PV system or from the grid at nighttime, and it would discharge to meet your demand from 3 to 8 p.m. And in exchange for 10 years of doing that in those summers, you would receive an upfront incentive. On top of this, we have a performance-based incentive for what's called active dispatch. Active dispatch events are basically for days like today when it's going to be 96 degrees, AC is going to be high, customer demand load is going to be very high. So in that case, they would cancel, the utility would cancel a passive event, and they would instead do an active event, which would coincide with the anticipated peak grid time for the day. So whether that's late afternoon or early afternoon, your battery would discharge up to 100% to meet grid demand. So that can happen anywhere from 30 to 60 times a summer, from June through September, and probably a few times in the winter as well on those very cold days. So performance-based incentives are paid out at the end of every season based on how much you participate, and they also go for 10 years in 2 5-year blocks. Next slide, please. So how to get involved. So for contractors, the first thing we recommend doing is to check the eligible equipment list to see if anything that you offer already is already eligible for rebates. And if not, there's a process to get that equipment on the list. We recommend everyone to get certified in a product. So a lot of these battery manufacturers require that you participate in some kind of training. And again, if there's anything on the list or not on the list that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to us. And then you can apply to become an eligible contractor. So the process is pretty simple. It's all online, doesn't cost anything, and we're always looking for new contractors. So more information is at energystoragect.com. Next slide. Thanks. And so for residential customers, for anyone who's interested in doing this for their home, again, energystoragect.com is a great place to start. We have a find a contractor tool, so you can find someone. If you already have solar, we definitely recommend talking to that contractor first to get an idea of if they do batteries or kind of how that process would work. Do your research, think about the essential devices. So that chart that I had earlier that had all these different appliances on there for homeowners, that's a great way to start to think about what's really important for you in your home. And then of course, get a HES audit. If it is required, if you've already had one done, say for solar or for another reason, you're okay, well, that qualifies. But if you haven't had one done in a while, you should definitely get one done first. Next slide, please. Oh, and I think that's it.
Thanks, Ed. That was a great overview. So quickly, we're going to talk a little bit about Smarty Loan, because no presentation on home solutions would be complete without talking about the Smarty Loan. Over the years, it's helped thousands and thousands of homeowners access low interest rate financing so they can make improvements to their homes, right? Whether that's installing a battery like Ed was just talking about, or one of more than 40 other home energy improvements, the Smarty Loan has been a reliable way for people to get access to flexible term, low interest financing. There's no down payment required, and loan amounts up to $40,000 for energy improvements that range from heating and cooling installing heat pump technology, new furnaces, air conditioning systems, home performance upgrades such as windows and insulation, and even health and safety measures like asbestos abatement and mold remediation can be covered by Smarty Loan financing. So the one new thing that we want to bring up today is that there's currently a Smarty summer special offer, 2.99% rate for 5, 7, or 10 years, or 1.99% for borrowers who are at or below 100% state median income levels. Again, to Brian's earlier point about wanting to make sure that we can reach vulnerable communities, a lower rate we're hoping can help encourage homeowners that are at or below state median income to learn about the options that they have for making energy improvements for their homes. Energy improvements help people save money in addition to reducing their energy use. So for this special offer that launched in July, the eligible measures include heat pumps, air source, ground source, battery storage, like Ed was just talking about, and EV charging equipment. So there's more information about this special offer on the website. So, if you're interested in learning about that, please do check out the website. We do require a home energy assessment before you can qualify for these lower rates. But again, it is important to get those home energy audits done. So with that, we're going to transition to building solutions. We're going to talk about CPACE new construction and then the new commercial solar offering, which is the roof lease, as well as a little bit of a refresher on the power purchase agreement, or PPA. The plan in the program was to turn over to the very knowledgeable voice of my colleague Elise Bazzelli. Unfortunately, she is sick and doesn't have a voice. So I'm going to just quickly talk about her update with the caveat that if you have questions, Elise's email address will be in the presentation and you can certainly reach out to her. But before we jump straight into new construction, let's give a quick refresher on what CPACE is. CPACE stands for Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's a program that can be utilized by commercial properties to finance their clean energy upgrades. Commercial properties in this sense includes things like office buildings, retail, industrial facilities, also covers nonprofit properties, houses of worship, YMCAs, private schools, things like that. Multifamily properties of 5 units and above are also considered commercial properties. Basically, any property that's not a municipal or state property or a residential property with fewer than 4 units can qualify as commercial property for this. And then when we're talking about clean energy upgrades, it covers all kinds of measures that would help lower utility bills, whether that's electricity or fuel bills, and the measure has to be permanently affixed to the property, right? So things like LED lighting, HVAC improvements, building automation, renewable energy like solar PV. These are all measures that can be financed using CPACE. Every project gets reviewed to make sure that the dollar savings from the energy improvements are greater than the overall investment of the project, right? CPACE offers longer term financing terms up to 25 years, so property owners can spread that payment out over a longer period of time and realize their savings, through the cash flows that they're going to generate from these projects. Then the owner repays the assessment, very similar to the way a municipal assessment like city water or sewage would be billed on the same payment cycle as municipal taxes. The payment cycle varies from town to town, but most towns in the state are on a twice a year cycle. The assessment then stays with the property regardless of whether the property is sold. So now, new construction itself. Um, for the most of the last 10 years, CPACE has generally been used for retrofit projects, right? Replacing things, energy systems in existing buildings, covering up to 100% of the cost of those new measures. A few years ago, CPACE launched a pilot program to understand more about how it could be used in new construction or gut renovation situations. So after that pilot wrapped up, all the learnings and feedback were, taken into consideration, and new guidelines for the new construction program were released a few months ago. All the programmatic elements of CPACE that I just went through apply to new construction, but as you can see in the graphic, the way the financing for new construction is used, it's a bit different, right? With new construction projects, financing can be used either to add it to an existing capital stack to replace more expensive debt, which is what you see in the stack on the left side of the graphic, or you can add to the capital stack, increasing the overall available capital, which is what you can see on the right. The idea here is to make clean energy improvements part of the design process and planning process, and provide an affordable source of capital that makes green energy possible. So CPACE financing for new construction, gut renovation, or building repositioning projects can be used to finance up to 35% of the eligible construction costs, depending on how energy efficient the building is designed to be. In order to be eligible for financing, a whole building energy model needs to be completed to demonstrate a design percentage of energy performance above the applicable building code. So this is above the code, right? The more efficient the building, the more CPACE financing may be available. This is also eligible for new construction for multifamily properties. Those properties can demonstrate the percentage of energy performance above code using the HERS rating system. The utilities offer cost sharing and incentives for both whole building energy models as well as HERS ratings, which makes these energy efficiency designs even more accessible for developers and property owners. There are also bonus technologies that can be included in the project to increase the amount of available CPACE financing. So you can see things like battery storage, EV chargers, heat pumps are part of that bonus technology bucket. So that was just a really high-level, quick overview of CPACE new construction. You can visit the website listed on the screen to find out more. You can also email Lease directly if you have specific questions. There'll definitely be future webinar presentations just devoted to this topic. So if you have questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us. So now I am going to stop talking and turn this over to my colleague Catherine Duncan, who's going to speak about the solar roof lease and the power purchase agreement.
Thank you, Rudy, and welcome everyone. I'm Catherine Duncan, and I work in the commercial financing programs. Today, my topic is financing solar, commercial solar. There are three ways that the Green Bank typically finances commercial solar. CPACE, the program that Rudy just spoke about, which isn't really my topic today, but in a nutshell, to finance solar with CPACE, the property owner is taking on debt, which is in contrast to the other projects that the programs I'll talk about. So CPACE is debt, the property owner owns the solar, the tax benefits of solar go to the property owner, all generation goes to the building, the owner needs to buy additional energy from the utility if necessary, or sell excess back to the utility. So the entire relationship with the energy generation and consumption is between the owner and the utility. The Green Bank's not involved. The only way the Green Bank is involved is that the owner pays us back for the financing we gave them. So they can pay back over those terms Rudy mentioned, up to 25 years. And and you'd be billed in accordance with your property taxes, so semi-annually, quarterly, or even annually in a few towns. But the key thing is it's debt, and the entire relationship with the energies between the utility and the owner. The roof lease, which is a fairly new product for us, is very different. So the roof lease is not debt, and the owner has no relationship to the energy production or generation of the system. The system is owned by a third party. The third party generates the electricity and sells it to the utility, and that relationship is completely separate. The owner of the building simply gets money for a lease. And you could think about it as if instead of an energy relationship, it's about renting out your garage or renting out a spare office space in your building, or if you had a mother-in-law apartment, you know, it's simply a rental agreement. You are leasing your roof space to someone else, and that's all you're doing. You get an annual roof lease over the course of 20 years, and that's it. And you don't have to think about anything. Your relationship to purchasing your energy and is going to stay exactly the same between you and your utility. So can you, Rudy, go to the next slide? So this is a slide that it's a little confusing, but the point of this slide is to show you the annual lease price. And you can see that for a very small project, the annual price is as low as $315 a year, which is peanuts. But the large project, you can see it ranges up to $49,000, which would be an enormous roof and an enormous installation. So you can see that crazy range is just to give you a sense of what the building owner could potentially earn. And it's going to be very dependent on the roof, its location, its capabilities for generation, because that's what the person installing the system is going to care about. And that's going to, you know, dictate the value to them of that array, and therefore the value they're willing to pass on to you for the leasing of that space. Rudy, next slide, please. And the roof lease is good for particular customers, commercial and industrial, nonprofits, including churches, municipalities, boards of education, and multifamily properties. It's because it's not CPACE and there's no need to have a CPACE lien backing it. It can be used for all these kinds of entities. The key thing to know on the roof lease is that there's no tax benefit to the building owner, as everything is related, only to that lease income, and all energy related items go to the third party owner and the relationship with the utility. What's nice about the roof lease is there's no credit underwriting required. There's no, it's a very simple process, and it's fast. It's a quick way to get solar on your roof and an extra income stream. So next slide, please. So the roof lease is in contrast to the PPA, which is the second way to finance solar where you don't own the system. The building owner doesn't own the system. Again, it's not debt. A third party owns the solar. That third party gets the tax benefits. The building owner actually, though, buys the generation owned by the third party whose panels are on the roof. So that's how that differs from a lease. You have a 20-year agreement where you pay an agreed upon rate for the generation on your rooftop. If you use more than the system generates, which will vary throughout the year, you are going to continue to buy excess from the utility. And if you use less, that's going to be a credit on your bill. But because the system is owned by a third party, that third party gets the tax benefits. Let's see. So yeah, let's go to the next slide, please. And the value of a PPA is that when you make that agreement on the price that you're going to pay, you're anticipating that rates are going to rise over the course of the 20 years. You're going to lock in a rate that is, you hope, much lower than how that price is going to track. So there's no upfront costs. You're going to get hopefully a positive cash flow because the rate you agreed on is beneficial to you and continues to be even more beneficial over time. You don't have to spend your capital on an installation. You have this locked in low energy cost. You don't have to maintain the system, and it's managed entirely by a third party. And I think I didn't mention this, but you don't have, with a roof lease, you also have no maintenance. You have no headaches, no worries, no concerns. Again, it's as if you just had a tenant in a garage or in an extra office. You just get that monthly rent. Next slide, please. PPA customers are very similar to a customer for a lease. You can have commercial and industrial profit owners, nonprofits, multifamily properties. If applicants for those property types don't have investment grade credit, we usually have the transaction backed by CPAs, which does mean there's a little bit of extra underwriting. On the investment grade property owners, there is no CPAs requirement for backing. And for the underwriting, the credit underwriting will take, the typical sort of underwriting like you have for a mortgage, 3 years of financials, debt statements, and what have you. So next slide, please. Okay, similarities and differences between the solar lease and the PPA. And again, the biggest component is you don't own the system. You don't have to do the maintenance. You don't have to pay for it to go on the roof. It's great for nonprofits who don't have or cannot take advantage of the tax credit. And you can, in both cases, roll in roof repairs, depending upon the dynamics and of the project. It would, you can roll in all or some of roof repairs. Those are the key similarities between those two products. And the key differences, the lease is regular income. It does not depend on how that solar array performs. And then the lease has no credit underwriting, and the lease is fast and simple. And the difference, another key difference is the PPA reduces electricity cost by locking in a lower rate for the energy purchased from the system, because you make that agreement in advance. So if anyone's interested in either of these two products, contractors, you need a contractor, and the contractor submits a pricing request at the link that you see on the slide, and this will be available to you after the call. And Rudy, that's it on solar financing for commercial projects.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, so now we're going to turn this over to David Beach, who's going to talk about our Green Liberty Notes.
Thank you, Rudy, and thanks all of you for coming and hearing all the great work that's going on at the Green Bank. Earlier on, Brian spoke about our mission, which is to confront climate change by increasing and accelerating the investment into Connecticut's green economy. But we also have another goal here, and that's what's written on the screen, and that is to strengthen Connecticut's communities, especially vulnerable communities, by making the benefits of the green economy inclusive and accessible to all individuals, families, and businesses. And so you've heard today about all of the great work that we're doing at the Green Bank, all of our investment options and financing options that we have. And it's important for us to not only provide these great solutions to accelerate the green economy, but we also want to make sure that the benefits of these solutions are accessible to individuals and families in Connecticut. And so it is this goal that has underlied our work in investment solutions. And Rudy, if you go ahead, you can go to the next slide. And it is so with that goal in mind that we created our Green Liberty Notes. Our Green Liberty Notes are 1-year investments. You can think of them like a certificate of deposit. You invest your money with us, and in a year you get your money back plus a specified rate of interest. The great thing about our Green Liberty notes is that they can be purchased for as little as $100. With bank certificate of deposits are often minimums of $500 or $1,000 or more. And for green bonds, you're looking at $10,000 as the minimum. And if you're lucky, maybe you could get one for $1,000. So we were really happy to be able to provide this investment solution that can be purchased for as little as $100, making it more accessible to everyday residents in Connecticut. If you go to the next slide, Rudy, I'll tell you a little bit about what your investment is supporting. So your investment will be supporting the Small Business Energy Advantage program, which helps businesses improve their energy efficiency. On this graphic here, you can see an example of one business that went through the program. They received an SBA loan. SBA just stands for Small Business Energy Advantage Program. And that saved their family farm $85,000 in utility bills every single year, allowed them to reduce their lifetime carbon emissions by 237 tons. And that is equivalent to removing 33 cars from the road every single year. So the great thing about this program is that it lowers the barrier of entry to businesses hoping to reduce their energy efficiency. There are three key elements to that. Number one, the program provides upfront incentives. These are grants that lower the cost of the energy efficiency work to be done. And then the program also provides interest-free loans that can be paid back on the customer's utility bills instead of them getting a separate bill, which really just makes it much easier for business owners to keep track and to pay back their energy efficiency loans. One thing that's also really cool and important to add here is that when the Green Bank started getting involved in this program, we were able to save the Connecticut Energy Efficiency Fund millions of dollars, which has allowed the Energy Efficiency Fund to then go ahead and spend that money in other areas to further the goal of energy efficiency in the state of Connecticut. So it is this great program that is backing our Green Liberty notes. With that, Rudy, I'll have you go to the next slide. So to ensure our investors have confidence that what they're investing in is really helping to fight climate change and is affecting the green economy, we went out to a third-party verifier called Kestrel Verifiers, and they provided a second-party opinion designating our Green Liberty notes as green bonds. This is a rigorous process. We have to meet certain principles that are designated by the Green Bond Council, and we have met that. And so this is a great little stamp that our investors can use to have confidence that when you invest in the Green Liberty note, you are helping to fight climate change. Then Rudy, I'll have you go on to the next slide. Yeah, so the Green Liberty notes, they're a great way to fight inflation. You can earn an interest rate that is higher than comparable one-year CDs. So not only are you helping the green economy, you're also earning more money than you would if you just put that money in a bank CD. I can't tell you right now the interest rate. You have to go to our website to do that. There are SEC laws that keep me from telling you about the investment and the interest rate all at once. But if you go to our website, you can see, and that interest rate is better than comparable one-year CDs. So that is really great because it gives you a chance to earn more money than you would while also having all these great green benefits and helping small businesses. And we've also gone through, we've set these notes up in a way to provide the utmost confidence to our investors that they're going to get paid back. Again, some of those terms I can't discuss here, but if you go to greenlibertynotes.com, you can read all of the relevant information. The key point to know is that you can have tremendous confidence that you're going to be paid back your money with interest in 1 year. This is not, like buying stocks and seeing how it goes. This is a secure investment, and you can have confidence in it. So it's a great place if you have some money right now that is sitting in a savings account and earning really tiny amounts of interest. You can put that money to use to not only fight inflation by earning a great interest rate, but also to fight climate change and help the Connecticut green economy. So I really encourage you to go to www.greenlibertynotes.com. The issuance that is currently out right now will be ending Friday at 11:59 p.m. So please go ahead and do that. The investment process is super easy. It won't take you more than 15 minutes. And like I said, it's give you a great opportunity to invest in the green economy. If you're interested, but not quite ready right now, we are coming out with Green Liberty Notes once a quarter. So about every 3 months, you'll have a chance to put your money to good work, helping Connecticut small businesses. So with that, I will hand it back over to Rudy, and thank you all again for giving me a chance to share about our investment solutions.
Thank you, David. Very exciting. And as David said, it is closing this week. So get your investments in or hang on till the fourth quarter investment comes up. So now for some closing thoughts, I'm going to turn it back over to Brian Garcia.
All right. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, David. That's great. Just some closing remarks here. One, as a result of the passage of Special Act 22-8, this legislative session, a hydrogen power study task force was established. The Green Bank is the chair of the task force. There are 5 ex officio members, including the commissioner of DEEP, the chair of PURA, the president of UConn, and the director of energy initiatives at the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technologies, otherwise known as CCAT, and 16 appointees coming from the legislative leadership. This task force will be making recommendations to the Energy and Technology Committee by January 15th of 2023. And the legislation specifically calls out these 7 areas that the task force will be looking at, including assessing the regulations and legislation needed to guide the development and achievement of economies of scale for hydrogen ecosystem in the state. Many of you on the line know that Connecticut is the fuel cell state. We manufacture fuel cells. We send fuel cells to space. They power our space station and our vehicles. So Connecticut has a long-standing history with hydrogen fuel cells. It will also look at an examination of the sources of potential clean hydrogen, including wind, solar, biogas, and nuclear. We had a presentation at our first task force meeting on July 12th, which included a presentation on green hydrogen from Stratagen. Stratagen is our consultant that's supporting our process here. So if you're interested in hydrogen, take a look, go to our website, www.ctgreenbank.com/hydrogen task force. Let's go to the next slide, Rudy. Our next meeting is actually next Tuesday. You can participate by dialing in, you could join a webinar, or you can come in person. We're going to show off over the coming months. We're having our regular meetings the second Tuesday of every month from 10 a.m. to noon. This month's meeting will be at the UConn Innovation Partnership Building for those of you who want to come in person. We'll have a 2-hour agenda, and then following the agenda, we're going to do a tour with the president of UConn on the partnership building for those of you who are interested. So feel free to join us. And there's the website link again for materials. And just kind of coming down the wire here, let's go to the next slide. As I had mentioned earlier, the Connecticut Green Bank is created by public policy, Public Act 1180. In fact, in 2009, with the failure to pass the American Clean Energy and Securities Act at the federal level, otherwise known as the Waxman-Markey Bill or the Cap and Trade Bill, the proponents of the Clean Energy Development Authority, which was a national climate bank within that bill, took it from the national level to the state level. So you see Reed Hunt there, the CEO of the Coalition for Green Capital, working with Commissioner Esty and Governor Malloy to create Section 99 of Public Act 1180 to demonstrate that the green bank model can work. We've been at this for over a decade. We see local green banks, the Montgomery County Green Bank. We see state level green banks. We have helped support green banks in developing countries, again, to use limited public resources to mobilize multiples of private to confront the climate crisis. Let's go to the next slide. We have worked with the national congressional leadership. Congresswoman Dingell has been a staunch proponent of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Accelerator, which is also known as the National Green Bank. Senators Markey and Van Hollen, including Murphy, and Blumenthal have been big proponents of the National Green Bank as well. Marquis and Van Hollen, back in the day in 2009 are back again in 2022, and their version of the climate bank is now included in the Schumer and Manchin agreement that was reached last week. So fingers crossed that bill gets across the finish line. If it does, through the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, the $27 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is effectively the National Climate Bank. So fingers crossed that gets across the line. And this is all to say that, the Constitution state, Connecticut, we are small, but we are big in the context of demonstrating how things can work at scale. There are some who say that we punch above our weight. That's definitely the case, and are hopeful that this bill gets across the finish line in the coming week or weeks. So looking forward to that. And I think that's it. Rudy, why don't we turn it over to you and see if there are any questions?
Great, thank you, Brian. Yeah, so we just have a couple minutes left. There are some questions that have come through. First, a very easy one to answer. Someone asked if there would be copies of the slides provided afterward. Yes, we will send out an email with links to the slides and the recording of the session, so you guys can have access to that. We're not going to be able to get to all the questions, obviously, since we're running out of time, but if you have other questions, feel free to email them to info@ctgreenbank.com, and we will get back to you on those things. We did have a question about the roof lease, Catherine, if you don't mind. At the end of the roof lease term, is the system removed and is the roof restored? Are there thoughts about, potentially having the owner purchase the system afterward? Maybe it could be coupled with battery storage, things like that.
So, I mean, it could be coupled with battery storage, but I think if somebody wanted battery storage, they would be better off going with the PPA, because remember, on the roof lease, the building owner does not gain any benefit from the solar. So the battery would be charged by their usual connection to the utility, right? And I'm wondering if David knows the answer to the question about at the end of the 20-year lease, whether the system is removed or purchased, or David, do you know? Because I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, it's a bit open in the air. The building owner would have a chance to purchase the system if they like, or the third-party owner, the Green Bank, would go ahead and remove the system. So with a PPA, after 20 years, there's opportunities to extend the term. Because the roof lease is dependent on the solar tariff that's provided by the utilities, that tariff is only 20 years. So I don't believe there are opportunities to extend. But yeah, at the end, the building owner has a chance to purchase this system to keep it up, or the third-party owner would remove it. Hope that helps.
That's good. Thank you both. There were a couple of specific Smarty questions that we'll follow up with after the fact about, specific things as far as what qualifies. There's a full list of things that we'd have to dig into. A question, Ed, if you're still here, about, is there any more information about front of the meter for energy storage solutions that you could discuss briefly?
Yeah, so we have an annual report, or an annual program review coming out. It will be filed with Ppa by the end of this month. And I believe there will be a section on some of the research that's been done for front of the meter. So it's not anything that's going to be part of energy storage solutions right now. So at this point, it's really just kind of research. And if it does get implemented, it probably won't be for at least another year. And it may not be part of ESS, but it would be part of, it might be managed by another area in the state, but it is a goal. So, but but nothing yet.
Great, thank you, Ed. All right, so one last question since we're right a little over time. I think, Brian, you might be able to talk about this briefly. Are there efforts right now underway about community solar that you could touch on?
Yeah, like broadly. So Connecticut's program is the Shared Clean Energy Facilities Program, also known as, Community Solar in Connecticut, although Connecticut's program is technology agnostic, meaning it can be any class 1 resource. It could be a fuel cell, could be solar, could be wind, could be micro hydro. So it is technology agnostic. The electric distribution companies implement the program here in the state. There is an annual, it may be biannual, a competition or RFP to solicit requests from developers of projects who would receive 20-year contracts with the EDCs for power and the renewable energy credit. Then separately from the agreement between the EDC and the developer is an agreement between the EDC and beneficial subscribers. So subscribers have been intentionally and purposefully identified as low income, moderate income families as well, could receive a 2.5 cent per kilowatt hour of consumption that they use on their electric bill as a result of the Shared Clean Energy Facility Program. So I don't know the exact docket number, but if you Googled Shared Clean Energy Facilities, Eversource, or Avangrid, you would come up through the program. And I think we're through year 2. It was 25 megawatts in year 1, 50 megawatts in year 2, and will be 50 megawatts for each of the next 4 years. So for a total of, 325 megawatts of projects. So take a look.
Thank you, Brian. All right, well, since we are now over 1 o'clock, I want to thank everyone again for joining us today. Again, if you have further questions, please feel free to email them to us directly and we'll do our best to get back to you. Thanks to all the panelists and have a great afternoon. Take care.
Thanks all.